There is a severe lack of Manchester United news at the moment. And when I say that, I mean truthful news, reports going about, because I think the future is so uncertain with INEOS coming. They haven't got a director of football in yet. We don't know what the transfer plan is. We don't know who the manager will be. That every single report sometimes has to be taken for a pinch of salt. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to do a news video today. I'm going to do a video talking about what INEOS can do in 2024. What they can do within this year to get Manchester United back to their best, to get Manchester United back to the top, not only transfers, but changes that INEOS can realistically make in 2024. And we're going to start off by talking about the most important changes that INEOS can make before we talk about the ins, the outs that we can realistically do this summer. Because the news is kind of take with a pinch of salt, dead news at the moment. Let's get to things that realistically can happen. Let's talk about football. What do United need? What can INEOS realistically do in the next 12 months to get us back? So, as said, the most important thing is structural changes to happen at Manchester United. Ratcliffe eventually, hopefully, will take full control. Hopefully, there will be a full sale. Eventually, the Glazers will be paid out. But what we've got so far is Blanc and Brailsford on the board. Omar Barada is CEO. But now we need to get a director of football in. We've been linked to a number of people. Reports say that Dan Ashworth's unlikely. But for me, we should go all out for Dan Ashworth. He is the best in class. Then for the finer details on recruitment, we should go all out for Paul Mitchell. He's one of the best in class. Then we should get a new medical department. Then we should get new scouts. We are starting to overhaul the medical department and then do eventual upgrades to Old Trafford. I think before United think about transfers and what transfer business they're going to do, they need to get the structural changes in place. Look how John Murtaugh, Richard Arnold, Ten Hag has blown through 400 million. We need to make sure that the right people are here to make a decision on where that money's going to go, where we're going to spend that money. And that's why I'm not that fussed that there's very little transfer news, other than maybe Olise and Todibo, because we know that Ten Hag likes them, the scouts have approved them, and INEOS like those people. Maybe Branthwaite as well, because INEOS like this British core. A lot of the other players Man United are linked to, you think, well, we really don't know. We really don't know. Olise, Branthwaite, Todibo, I think are the three players we're linked to where you're like, okay, that's interesting. But we've got to wait for Omar Barada to approve that. We've got to see what the new director of football does. And for the director of football role, I'm going to go all out for Dan Ashworth. For me, he's the best option in class. The reason he's the best option in class is he came into West Brom, no experience, got West Brom through their best period, got West Brom, multiple seasons in the Premier League, but he got West Brom back-to-back mid-table finishes when they had the second lowest wage budget in the league, revolutionised West Brom, brought in some absolute gems. I was speaking to someone when I was up at the Wolverhampton game the other day, and he's a Wolves fan, and he was talking about Dan Ashworth to me, and he said that this guy, Dan Ashworth, apparently, because he was speaking, he knew a lot of people at West Brom, as soon as West Brom needed someone, like their left back was injured, he'd come to them with a list of about 10 left backs and saying, these three are probably the best suit to us. Apparently, he was the guy that was the reason West Brom had that most successful period. He then went to England. England had a very good side, but they didn't play very well together, and they failed at so many World Cups. Then this not so good England side went to Russia and did better than the good England sides, because he actually instilled a book when he went to England to sort out the mentality. It's not just what he does in terms of recruitment, Dan Ashworth, but why I think he's so key for United is what Dan Ashworth does in terms of standards, in terms of setting a standard, in terms of the dressing room. He went to Brighton, he set a new standard in the dressing room, but what he did at Brighton, which is what INEOS wants to do, is he set a style of play. So when Graham Potter left, they had a way that Brighton were going to play. They brought players to play the way Brighton was going to play, and De Zerbi was brought in and said, you've got to play this way, this is the Brighton way. This is something they might do at United. Change the culture at England, change the culture at Newcastle, change the culture at Brighton, but at Newcastle and at Brighton, he's established a way of playing, and then they've got a coach to go in and do that, which is something that INEOS want to do. We could go in about Paul Mitchell, the work he's done at Southampton, Spurs, Monaco, the RB clubs, but I don't want this video to be too long. We know why we need a new medical department, because the injury management's been poor. Martinez injury wasn't fixed, and they didn't see that. And of course, eventual upgrades to Carrington, Old Trafford, new scouts. But I think now we've sort of spoken about the board and the most important changes that need to happen in recruitment and bringing in the right people like Dan Ashworth, we're going to talk about the outs. And I'm trying to be realistic here, because this is not what INEOS should do overall. This is what INEOS should do in 2024. But thinking overall, you're chucking Maguire in there, you're chucking a lot of other players in there. But realistically, I don't think more than 8 players will leave. It's United. We're going to struggle to get rid of players. I think Varane and Casemiro, for me, leave in 2025. Wan-Bissaka or Dalot leave in 2025. I think it will be Wan-Bissaka to leave in 2025, because Dalot is more suited to what Ten Hag wants to do. but we don't know if Ten Hag's here. In terms of 2024, I'd sell Lindelof, I'd sell McTominay, I'd sell Sancho. I would take anything over 25 million for Anthony, but I think he's going to be very difficult to sell. And I would sell Donny van de Beek moving on. We've got Evans, Amrabat and Martial set to leave on a free. Not too bothered if Evans wants to stay around another year. But if Evans goes, that for me opens up a chance for Willy Camboala. Part of me thinks I'd love Evans around in the dressing room. He's a great leader, great guy in the dressing room. But obviously, I'd rather see Willy Camboala get a few chances there at centre-back. And then I also put Mejbri, Greenwood, McTominay and Alvaro sales at the bottom because they will raise FFP because they're homegrown players. And INEOS believedly want to sell Mejbri, see if they can get 15, 20 million. Greenwood, see if they can get 30, 40 million. McTominay, see if they can get 30, 40 million. And Alvaro will probably go for 8 million. But the reason those sales would be more important than the sales of Sancho, the sales of Lindelof and the sales of Anthony is Anthony will be a 60 million FFP loss, whereas that would be pure profit. And if you sell someone for pure profit, like McTominay, it means that then INEOS have more money to spend because of FFP leeways. And also, I think players like McTominay will be a lot easier to sell. The reason I put Lindelof in there and not Maguire, for you asking, is one, I think Maguire's better than Lindelof. But two, Lindelof's wages are a lot less than Maguire, so I think Lindelof's going to be easy to sell. Lindelof and McTominay, I think, should be easy to sell. I think Sancho might just cut his wages to go and play football. Donny, I think, will just want to play football. Anthony's going to be the one that's difficult to sell. Now, talking of the ins, we need a centre-back, we need a DM. For me, we need two wingers as we're getting rid of Sancho and Anthony, and we definitely need a backup experienced striker to sort of work Rasmus Højlund. In terms of centre-back and DM, and I think arguably we need two defenders and two midfielders, but I'm trying to be realistic here. We need players that are comfortable in possession, comfortable in build-up in midfield and defence. And in attack wings, we need direct players that can create press, but also take on their man. So frustrated with Anthony not being able to take on his man. So going into defenders, Jared Branthwaite just had this unbelievable game versus Spurs. Todibo, Antonio Silva, Branthwaite, Inacio, Uran, Monday are those on my list. Realistically, I would go with Branthwaite and Todibo, 90 million. Get both of them in. Todibo wide, great wide channel defender, can defend the wide spaces, can cover a lot of ground, very comfortable on the ball, very, very comfortable in possession, very good one-on-one, good recovery pace. And then you've got Branthwaite, who isn't as mobile as Todibo, but he's a very good box defender, very good in the air. You look at Konate and Van Dijk. Konate's good at defending the wide spaces, good at covering the ground, has that sort of pace, has that movability. Van Dijk is the box defender to stop everything in the box, to stop the set pieces. Van Dijk just does it all. I'm not going to compare Branthwaite to Van Dijk. I think those two would be realistically best options because you get them both for 90 million. I think Euro and Diamonde have the highest ceilings along with Antonio Silva, but then you've only got the budget for one centre-back there. I think if Varane goes, you have to get two centre-backs. If it's just Lindelof, you can get away with just bringing in the one centre-back. But if two centre-backs go, United need to get two. And Jared Branthwaite today was unbelievable versus Spurs, really going on me. Going into the midfield options, United definitely need a physical presence in midfield, in my opinion, to partner Kobbie Mainoo, someone that is comfortable playing as a 6 and an 8. I think we need a dual pivot of Kobbie Mainoo and someone that is physical, that can cover ground, that can do defensive work, but also able to push up because we know that Mainoo can sit back, but also able to sit back so Mainoo can push up and use his creativity. Amadou Onana looks like he could be that guy, but I'm not completely sold on him, to be honest. The more and more I watch Everton, it's Branthwaite standing out, not Amadou Onana. I think there's a really, really good player, Mats Wiefer. My only fear is Eredivisie. But Bayern, Barcelona, Real Madrid are looking at Mats Wiefer, 35 million. For me, he's a year and a bit older than Onana, and he's not Premier League proven. But Mats Wiefer, I think I find a bit more convincing than Amadou Onana. I don't think he's necessarily the best option defensively. I think he can be a little bit rash, sometimes like Casemiro can be. Casemiro's obviously good defensively, but he's a very good ground jeweler, wins a lot of his duels. He's very, very good in the air, which is something that Mainoo does struggle with, and he covers a lot of ground. And because we've seen that Eriksen and Casemiro can't always cover the ground, that's caused us problems. But I think his ability to progress the ball and carry the ball as well is something that we lack in midfield, sort of connecting with defence to attack, and why Kobbie Mainoo has been so important. So I think Wiefer and Kobbie Mainoo would probably be my ideal pairing. I think Subamende would be a good option, but he's linked to Arsenal. And then I also put Kamara of Aston Villa in there. Had a very good season. Don't think it's going to happen. Long shots would be names like Camavinga, Tchouameni, Barella and De Jong. Obviously, not all of them are the sort of 6/8 hybrid physical profile that I was explaining, but they're just midfielders I love. But I don't think United have got any chance of getting them. Going into wingers, for me, Olise, 60 million release clause, but apparently Crystal Palace will sell him for £50 million. The only thing that worries me with Olise is his injury record. It wasn't bad last season, it's got bad this season, but in 10 games, he's got 6 goals and 3 assists in a Palace side that honestly plays some of the deadest football in the league, and then they've got Eze and Olise carrying them. Palace have a solid back four, bar right back, but I think they've invested in one, and Olise and Eze carrying them, like just springing that flair. But I think we need 2 wingers. On top of Olise, who can play on the left, can play on the right, predominantly on the right, a guy that can get into the half space, create, that has a good reading of the game and has good stats. I think someone like Nico Williams that is absolutely rapid would suit this Man United side, particularly if Ten Hag's here and wanting to play in transition. I really like Pedro Neto, but he's injury prone. Bakayoko, I'm a massive fan of direct. Looks like the right wing version of Doku as well. Could really bring a lot to United. And Sule at Olise, whatever that club's called, is looking exciting. But I've only watched a tiny weeny bit of Sule, so I can't comment too much on him. But all of those wingers seem great. But Olise and Nico Williams would be my team. And then going into the strikers, I like Rasmus Højlund. I rate Rasmus Højlund so highly that I'm not too fussed about going in for an Ivan Toney type striker, even though he's got that experience, because we can see Højlund's now got 5 goal contributions in his last 3 Premier League games. I'm looking at someone more like a Scamacca, which people might laugh. It's like a Scamacca, Alice, what you're saying. I know he wasn't great at West Ham, but I think he is a 10-0 kind of striker. I'm looking at someone like Gimenez, coming from the Eredivisie, 24 years old, 19 goals, 19 games, clinical, does a lot more than just score. He can dribble, he can link up play. That's something that Ten Hag likes. I want to bring in someone that's got experience to take that burden of Højlund, but also if Højlund gets injured, someone that we can rely on. I do think Gonzalo Ramos could be an option with his PSG loan spell not going well, but we'll have to wait and see. And then, obviously, they were sort of the 4 or 5 players that I think Manchester United should be going for in the summer. But, you know, if we sell well and we do have the budget, I would be looking at right-backs, Frimpong, Vanderson, Mazzarari. I'd be looking at a second left-back in Inacio and Branthwaite. For me, you either just go out all out and get an Antonio Silva, Euro, Diamonde type player, or you get a Todibo along with either Inacio or Branthwaite to play left centre-back. And then if the funds were there, I would look at Jan Neves, but I think he's someone I'd go for in 2025 realistically. But maybe Andre or Fluminense could be around 20 million. Someone with the technical ability. So let's say Meno gets injured. We're like, oh no, there's no technical ability in midfield. There's no one that can touch the ball in midfield that's comfortable in possession. Then you'd have someone like Andre to come in. So that's what I would do if I was INEOS in 2024. That's what I'd be looking to do in terms of who I want to bring in, Dan Ashworth, how I want to change the structure, and how I'd look to invest money in the summer, who I'd look to sell, and who I'd look to buy realistically. There's obviously players that I would like to buy in 2025 and like to sell in 2025, and there's a lot more work to be done, and it's not going to be done overnight, but that's sort of what I'd look to do. Thank you for watching. Smash a like, smash a subscribe. See you next time. Bye.